This is Radically Alive Women's Edgecast. Welcome to Radically Alive Women Edgecast. My name is Julia Neumann, and I'm here with Amy Weber and Gabriela Fagundes. Hello to both of you.
Hello.
Hello.
I want to speak with you about mother-daughter relationship, and you both have your expertise in that respect in your own ways, and I sort of want to branch out into the field unknown and known. What is possible there if we're leaning into a culture that is more empowering and birthing life in more regenerative ways? And Amy, you are a parenting coach. You are also a mother. And you are a facilitator at Tides, which is a rites of passage for teenage girls with their mothers.
Yes.
So thank you for being here with all of that.
Thanks for the invitation, Julia.
Yes. And Gabriela, you are an explorer of life. You're experimenting wildly in this not knowing of really like a young woman that doesn't have labels at the moment. And yet you are writing a book together with Amy about mother-daughter relationship.
Yes, I am.
Thank you for your yes to being here. And so like this gives a bit of an introduction to our listeners. And at the same time, I would like to start with my usual traditional question of, can you bring yourself in with your voice of who are you right now? And maybe start with Amy. Who are you right now in this moment?
In this moment, I am a mother who is navigating the transition from having children living at home to being in the empty nest. I work a lot with the muse of the empty nest and ask myself the question often of who am I when I'm not a mother, even though mothering is one of the most important things to me. And I'm standing about a week out from going to another Tides event, another of our rites of passage programs for teenage girls and their mamas. So I'm deep in contemplation about this mother and daughter relationship as it pertains to me personally, and as how I can be a supporter for other mothers and daughters in their relationships.
Thank you. And who are you, Gabriela?
Right now, I am a daughter that is learning to love her mother as she is. And I am just about 3 weeks ago met her after 2 years, and has opened this huge doorway to meet her as a woman, as a creator, as a cooker, and seeing much beyond my mother and her, but also seeing in her my mother. And this is something new for me. And right now I'm also in the creative process of co-writing this book about the first bleeding with Amy for mothers and space holders of girls, and holding space mostly for change. What does it mean to hold space for change? Which is one of the aspects, I think, of being a mother, is holding space for change from the conception on. So we are collaborating that, and the idea came from the Rising Tides. I was part of the facilitators team there, and brought this idea in of weaving connection and collaboration in a book together for mamas and space holders. So that's also part of who I am in this space that we are opening.
It sparks in me, like I get the sense of you're both really looking at the threshold of a girl becoming a woman and how that affects the daughter-mother relationship and the mother-daughter relationship. And I love that. I think really important threshold, and my sense is that it starts much earlier than then. It could start much earlier than then. I've noticed my incompetence of talking with my friends' daughters who are in the teenage years about this transition, when I feel so incompetent of how do I approach this topic and so on, as a woman that is not the mother but still a woman in the field. And I noticed it's actually something that needs to start much earlier. It's like the more rites of passage become, or the change, as you say, Gabriela, becomes part of everyday life and is something that is spoken about, and not just spoken about, is witnessed because the mother lives it, then it starts much earlier than at the age of, I don't know, in the teenage years when the girls are approaching their menses, their bleeding time. Can you say something about that? Any of you who has the impulse to speak?
Yeah, what comes up for me is the importance for community in holding a certain level of consciousness or awareness around a girl's first bleed and around the mother, and making, I guess for girls, making it a normal and natural process and something to be celebrated.
And Emmy, as you're in these years of holding space for tides, but also rising tides, which are younger girls, what have you noticed possible in the relationship between mothers and daughters?
Gosh, what a question. That's a big question. I have witnessed mothers and daughters renegotiating their relationship with each other. And I've witnessed them even learning that a renegotiation is possible. Maybe they've been on a track with each other of certain patterns in their communication or certain patterns in their relationship. Or maybe they've been on a track with each other where there's a resistance to change, even though change is coming, whether they welcome it or not. So noticing that when there's a space held for consciousness to cause and create something different in their relationship, I've noticed that as a possibility through tides and rising tides, through an openness of speaking about different topics with each other, through an openness of mothers allowing more space for daughters, and for daughters to have the realization that as they're growing older, they can take on more responsibility. And as they're taking on more responsibility, they're also opening up to more freedoms. So it's like a rising of the tides with both of those. I'm curious what you've noticed in that space, Gabriela, because you've been in both a Rising Tides program and a Tides program. And you too, Julia, because you've been in that Tides space before.
Yeah, I notice overall movement of pushing away from the daughters, pushing away the mothers, and almost like wanting to claim and to emancipate into their own space. And the contradiction of at the same time wanting the things being taken care of. So it's such a contradiction of wanting more freedom but not wanting the responsibility. And noticing the fear of not knowing how to take more responsibility, like the incompetences of not knowing how to cook and not knowing how to make money and not knowing how to take care of oneself, and like all these fears of daily life aspects of incompetences and not knowing how to take responsibility about the most basic things and wanting to. So that a lot of this tension and a deep love that is embraced with this rebellion, crust, or isolating or dissociating, or like, oh mom, I don't want you to treat me more as a child, but I'm not an adult anymore. So it's like, don't talk with me like that, mom. And I saw different girls like really resisting the moms to talk about them or to bring them close, or as they used to do as the little ones. And from the mama side, I noticed a lot of wonder and love for this woman that is emerging from inside of a girl, like this blossoming that is coming. So I saw mom's eyes sparkling in tears of seeing these girls coming from their journey that we had, which is a secret, but that the process of tides, and seeing their eyes looking at this newborn woman in front of their eyes. And I also saw the grief and the attachment to keeping it, the little child, in its arm, and the fear of what relationship is possible from them if I'm not treating this young woman as a child, as my girl, as my child any longer. And a lot of fear, and a lot of sadness of things that wanted to be different, and it was not. A lot of sadness of a little bit like regret. So I perceived a lot of feelings in there as well. And I see the potential. One potential I see is really these spaces where mothers can be with their daughters and be witnessed in their relationship and in their change that happens through time, where family and mother-daughter relationship is not between four walls inside of a house, but it is woven within the wider community of women and also of men, but that's not something that happens alone. And at the same time, there's a sacredness, and there is a magic of that relationship that is just there, I'm speaking like, because I was with Evelyn, which is very young, 3-4 years old, and holding space for her. And I can sense I can hold space for her, but I cannot replace her mom. Like, I can take responsibility and be with her, but her mom is her goddess. And I can see this in her eyes. It is her world. And loving her mom is loving her.
I have two things that I notice as I listen to you both, and one is the importance of feelings, that feelings are okay in this transitional process. And the other one is this topic of, mother is actually goddess for children, not maybe in the Christian sense, but in the sense of she provides everything. She provides nourishment, she provides shelter, she provides warmth, she provides love, like unconditional love in the best case. But even in the worst case, all she provides is life, birthing life. And this is immense, this is a miracle in itself. And I sense that in a mother-daughter relationship, this can be easily also neglected. And maybe the feelings weave into our conversation here, but this this shift of like how this shift becomes possible, of mothers owning that and daughters honoring that, and at the same time that feelings can be there, because shit is going, like, no one is perfect and mothers aren't perfect. It's like they make mistakes, they project their own stuff onto their daughters, they have maybe fear of letting them go, and so they cling on to them and try to keep them their little girls for the rest of their lives. And What do you know about this? Um, yeah, Amy, I see
I
you
know a lot
nodding.
about that.
What comes up to you? Go.
I know a lot about that. um, I guess what comes to mind for me is that in being a mother, I feel like my job is to become obsolete in a way. Um, that at the beginning of my children's life, my role was it was like we were just discussing, to be everything for them, the nourishment, the shelter, the warmth, the love, and to be able to discern when I can open that circle and allow them to step more into the world. And for me, thank goodness, it's a gradual process. And it's a gradual process from birth, that separation of physical body. And then when that child first starts taking their first steps away, or when they, when the importance of friends steps in, or just when they're spending more time apart. So for me, it's been a dance of learning where to give that space and that freedom, and at the same time feeling that nostalgia is maybe the word for it, of those days when we were almost the same being. And one thing that I see in the Tides program is that a lot of the mamas come thinking that they're there to support their daughters in this transition, and they slowly get the realization that they are also there for their own journey, because as the daughter is making a change of life stage, that automatically means that the mother is as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the feelings are so important because, if you cannot grieve, if there's no space to grieve, like grief is a necessary process of letting go of a role, and especially the role of a mother, as maybe undervalued it may be in current modern culture, current society. It's still, at least it's something. Yeah, it's like, there's also something. Okay, well, at least you're a mother, and then you're being loved so unconditionally, and you can love so unconditionally, and there's this space for that. And if you make use of that, and then you can really identify with that. And there's also this shadow of motherhood, of then wanting to identify it through your children and owning
Mm.
them and making them your own in a way, and not letting them go.
Mm.
And when grief can't happen at this point, then this needs to continue, or you let go, but you don't, like, you're closing your heart because it hurts too much or something like that. What do you know
Mm.
about the grief in this transition process, or in this constant letting go process as a mother, and maybe also as a daughter? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something that ebbs and flows, that it's not a linear process. And I probably will always feel some amount of grief, of the longing for the relationship I have had with my children in the past, despite the fact that I love where we are now, and also think that we've got new spaces to expand into that I look forward to. But I just know I loved those times of being a mother to small children, and it's hard to give that up. I also can really identify with what you were saying about that role of mother, almost like wearing that mask of motherhood and not allowing myself to either show who I am or know who I am beyond being somebody's mother. I remember really viscerally the day that I dropped my youngest off to kindergarten for the first day, and walking around town and feeling really naked somehow, without a little person with me who I was used to holding his hand. Or I also realized sometimes or often when I was talking to somebody, I would have one of my children in front of me with my hands on their shoulders. And I realized, oh gosh, was that a shield? So I didn't have to show myself who I am, or didn't need to stand on my own in the world. So even that was a big adjustment for me. And that just carried on through the teenage years and through them being in their early 20s and not living at home anymore. It's it's a big readjustment of identity for me.
And I think there's also the other side. There's also the other side as a daughter, right? Like, I mean, I am a daughter. I went through the teenage years. You both did as well. And it's this like, it's like blaming the mother for everything is the shadow side of the daughter, or one of the shadows of the daughter, I would say. It's like finding whatever went wrong in life and blaming it on the mother of what she didn't do or what she did. And also shifting out of this identity of being cared for, the mother owes me, to becoming equal, and yeah, I don't want you in my space, and like pushing the mother out is such an important part of the teenage years, and at the same time there also needs to happen this like, okay, and it means I need to take more responsibility for what I want to happen. I can't just look to my mother. Can you say something about that, Gabriela, maybe?
From the place of daughter, I see this big urgency for, as you said, pushing away. And if I really look at my own experience, it was really like that. I left my parents' house when I was 14, was pretty early, and was really this urge to pushing away and seeing what else is there in the world beyond the constraints of the goddess view. And my journey as a daughter has been, at the first time, was very rough and almost denying that I have a mom, like really wanting to cut off. And at this time, it was very relevant. There was one time I did an experiment of 6 months of no contact with anyone in my family, and it was one of the most hardest thing to do. And there was so much reactivity from the other side. And this triggered a whole process for my mom, which I discovered just later on, after the 6 months, what went for her, of her anger and her sadness and her grief. And from my side was this despair, which I had removed myself physically from her house, but emotionally, psychologically, and my values, the way I see the world, was so much entangled still with them. So I was running through the road and traveling to the next place and the next place, but I still was feeling in this prison of my mom's belly and and her way of being in the world, and that I don't have space to be myself in the world. So that time was really to burst through. And at this point, so before, during the 6 months, I was fighting and I was trying to change her. And this is what I see a lot in young women, or even like other women that is still is in their mother's space, is that they are wanting to change their moms, or they're fighting them, or wanting them to give them more than they could give in their childhood, for example. So they want them to be more caring, or more clear, more alive, more loving, cooking specific food, or giving more space, or like being different than who they are. That was the main thing that I was fighting with, which was fighting with air. It was like nothing really happened. And then that I remember one point where I was walking with her and I said, "Mom, there's something called mother graduation. And you must read this website." you know, if you read that, our life will change as mother-daughter, like our life will change forever. And I tried to sell her this idea. And why did I do that? Oh my goodness, she went like this woman got so angry. She said, how dare you to say I can't stop being your mom, graduating from being a mother? No way. Like, where did you get this outrageous idea from? Like, and I never saw this woman so angry. And I was so happy. I was like, wow, mom, you're angry. Like, wow. She became a dragon. And I was like, whoa. And she really like blocked that. And I could not get it. I was like, mom, you can be free of me. And she said, I never will want that. You are the thing that I most love. And at this time, I could not get that. I could not accept this amount of love she had, in the way she had, attached or not attached. It does not matter, but I could not grasp it, what she was saying there. And it took me about 3 years going through several processes and pushing away, and tides and rising tides and trainings and different kind of experiences in different spaces to stop fighting her. And the first time I called her after the 6 months, where I just listened to what she was saying, her grief and her sadness and her anger and her joy of accepting that I'm an adult woman now, and that she wants to meet me. This was like the most unexpected way that I went for my life, and I was not changing her anymore. And there it started a new relationship, and the edge that I am as daughter, and I see the possibility for women to step in, is to realize that as soon I am blaming or I'm not seeing my mom as she is, if she is alive or dead, I'm refusing life. I'm really refusing to be alive, because this woman gave me life. And when I think, if I judge my grandmother and I think that she should be different, I'm saying that my mom, my uncles that I love so much, my brother, these whole people that came after them, they should not exist. That's what I'm doing when I'm judging them. I'm saying that these people, life as it is now, should not be. When I think that, I'm like, what? Of course not. I love so much these people. So since I started thinking about that, it became very hard to judge them in this way that I used to.
Interesting to hear you talk, Gabriela, about daughters wanting to change their mothers. And I see it the other way too, of mothers having expectations about how their daughters should be, and what a learning it is to actually see their daughters as who they are, which could potentially be a lifelong learning.
I think when we as women go to really in close contact with reality, then it does mean we get to know each other afresh every time we meet. Yeah. So to see them as they are means letting go of any concepts. The moment we've met people, daughters, mothers, like the concept comes up, this is how she is. And it's like letting that go again. Like, okay, who's she now? Who's she now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a challenge when it's about mother and daughter relationship, because of the time of repeating actions as this identity. So in my research, as longer I repeat, and an identity is like a collection of behaviors and ways of thinking and orientation to move into life. So as I repeat these behaviors, so as a mother or as a daughter receiving or taking it, and as a mother giving and providing, and I repeat this throughout 18 years or more, that becomes it's really what you're saying. I mean, I really was touched being tied to also being in a mama's place. For me, this was also a big initiation as a daughter to not being a mother yet, or not knowing even if I would give birth one day, but to place myself in a place of mother and witness this emergence of skin, that this clothes of being a mother where you were for so long that it really can see even to the outside that is your skin. So to peel the skin off, imagine the pain of peeling the skin off is almost masochism, right? When I imagine of taking my skin off, it feels like masochism. But I could really feel that pain in witnessing the moms going through this process of change and creating a gap in the identity of being a mother. And also I see the shadow side, the shadow side happening in the sense of the dependence. I see mother culture creates the way we learn through generations with mothers is the relationship of symbiosis and dependence. And there is this fulfillment of being needed. So we, as I see as women in general, we raise children to be dependent and to be needed, and we don't learn how to empower them to take more responsibility as they grow.
Interesting too, Gabriela, what you were saying about an identity is the repeated actions or repeated ways of being. And then you started talking about the generations, and I can see that there are often patterns of relating, that it's a legacy that's passed down from one generation to the next, to the next. And what I feel really excited about is ways of consciously choosing those patterns of relating and bringing intention to that rather than just receiving what's been passed through the generations. And maybe, yes, maybe I do want to keep some of what's been passed down. And I feel really excited about the idea of creating something different as well, and holding space for people to realize that they can cause and create something different in those relationships.
I want to bring just an illustration to what you just said, Amy, that for me was like being in tights and witnessing the possible ways in the relationship for the menarche of how to be with a girl in their first bleed, and the diversity of possibilities of how this can be a source of creation. So in this moment of choosing a different pattern, seeing moms creating like this big baskets of gifts, or there was one thing that Amy told about biscuits, where you have like that she baked before the first bleed, and that she would gift to her daughter, to someone else, every month in the bleed for the next year, and use that as a ritual to communicate and to create connection. So this power of creation in the relationship, and the diversity of ways that it can go, fascinates me. That as a daughter, from the reference I have, I was like, wow, that's possible. I never thought of that. Even if I don't have a girl, but the girls I have around, that I can hold space for them in such a way that their bleed, it's a all of life. Whoa.
Yeah, I think about what you were saying with those biscuits, Gabriela, making those biscuits. I learned that from the community of women at Tides. There were two friends there who inspired me to do that, who showed me a different way of honoring a monthly bleed in a way that I could support a young person in that.
Yeah, I imagine that there are so many more ways also to be invented. Yeah, and yes, being inspired by others, and then also really sourcing from a deep inner knowing that goes beyond patterns and reaches. I keep getting this image of reaching really deep into the earth wisdom, or I don't know, maybe universal wisdom, but reaching into a source outside of ourselves and pulling in from there, which requires mothers to initiate, to be initiated, to be so close to themselves and take the energy back, maybe also from their daughters more and more, which gives the mothers again more freedom. And as I listen to you, Amy, I get especially also the necessity of ritual, of marking of the transition, like of marking the letting go steps. Yeah, and this is one of the biggest ones in the mother-daughter relationship, is probably the menarche, when a girl starts to bleed. And but as you said, there's so many more steps before, and rituals don't have to always be like big, huge ceremonies, but something to mark that. How does tides fit into that, or what is the power of that?
When you said that a girl's first moon time is one of the biggest steps for marking that transition from childhood to adulthood, it is maybe one of the most visible. And it's also not just a line that one steps over. And so at tides, it's also with ritual, marking that transition from childhood to adulthood, with the realization that it's actually a journey. So it's maybe making those first steps into adulthood, but knowing that a girl doesn't become a woman overnight, but it's bringing consciousness to that transition.
Yes, this ties totally in with where I started, or like my question of how do you accompany, how do you hold space for a girl to become woman? And it starts probably, I don't know, maybe in the belly. It's a journey that is that we walk towards, and it doesn't stop there. It's just like this is a journey.
And I also see that is the what woman's culture we are immersed in. So one thing that I experienced in Thais was like the seed of mothers coming together, and then like just seeing the mamas coming together in a circle and sharing their experience and not being alone in their experience in their nuclear family constellation, and then seeing the girls having this shared space where everyone is going through similar things, and to have this mirror of, oh, I'm not alone in that. It's not only me that is asking so many questions about sex and thinking that I'm crazy about sex. Like everyone has all these questions and these unknown territories about the most visible thing that we can see, which is our biology, our physical bodies. So I think that's one value that I see also in adding what you're saying, Emmy, about tides, is to have this shared experience where people can simply talk about, like, no adding on things about what could be. The created space container where they are there together for 1 week in a camp setting, no time, no smartphones, no distractions, to be together. It's a bridge in modern culture, like from modern culture, that I value very much the existence of.
Mm-hmm. Another beautiful thing that happens in that space is the girls who come are in connection with multi-generations. And so there's the layer of girls who are there to experience their own rites of passage. There's a layer of young adults who have gone through rites of passage on their own, who are there to serve as guides. They're tuakana as we call them. And then there are women in all the decades of life. And so it's an opportunity for the girls to come and create relationships with people beyond their mother, or to seek mentors. And so it's a way to gain a wider perspective on life.
Yeah. Thank you. We're coming to an end, also naturally. It seems to close. I have a last question for each of you, and to make it really practical, like to give women one practical exercise or experience they could do, experience. I would love to hear from you, Amy, like one thing that a woman could include in her everyday routine or relation with her daughter in terms of letting her go or making space for the next.
For myself personally, I do this on a canvas with painting. And it's not a painting process that is about the outcome. It's about self-expression. And so sometimes I'm painting, expressing my feelings with just color or a certain image. And for me, it's layer upon layer upon layer of paint, little bits at a time. I have some paintings that I've been working on for 5 years even, and I just see what emerges. So for me, it's self-expression through creativity and seeing what arises for myself in that space.
Thank you. What I hear there also is this invitation to find your own creative expression, to express your feelings and make sort of let it land in yourself as a mother.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Gabriela, from the perspective of a daughter, what is one practice or experiment that you would give daughters that are making space for themselves from their mother, that are shifting into adulthood?
Write a letter, a 4 pages at least letter, a love letter to your mom, and give it to her in person by post office, or if she's dead, burn and make a ceremony to tell her, to read out loud this letter to her. And if you don't find words to express 4 pages letter to your mom, then you keep writing it until you find it. You keep going until you feel at least 4 pages of what you appreciate, what you love, what you honor, what you miss, what you are grateful for, about your mom and about the woman who she is.
Thank you. And I realize I have another question, which is the very last one of when is your book going to be out? Thank you for writing it.
That's a
We
very
just had
good
a
question.
meeting yesterday.
It will be out when it's out.
That we are in a spacious time. Yeah. Yes, that we have no deadline, and that the process of this book is through simmering, percolating, and being in the flow. So we don't have a deadline, which is also dead inside of the word. So I don't like it, but the process is alive, and we are meeting bi-weekly or from 3 to 3 weeks, and we are weaving the threads into these words. And you will know when it will be out.
It's in gestation. Yeah.
Yes, you're birthing it, and that takes its own time. Thank you so much to both of you. Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you, Amy. Good to hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your questions and for your space and for saying yes, Amy.
Yeah, thank you both.